I'd like to call to order the meeting of the Board of Trustees of the Batavia Public Library District for September 17, 2013. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Pavic?
Here.
Blodgett? Here. Beachman?
Here.
Von Lunen?
Here.
Jakubowski? Here. Sullivan?
Here.
Schuster's here.
Okay, we have a quorum. Thank you. Item 4 is comments from the audience. Anyone wishing to provide public comment? Okay, seeing none. Item 5 is the consent agenda, which tonight consists of minutes from June 18, which were here at your place as you arrived, expenditures from August 2013, and a resolution relating to the per capita grant application to the state. Would any trustee like to remove any of these items for a separate vote? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as submitted?
I so move.
Second.
Okay, moved by Von Lunen, second by Pavic. Actually, let's do a roll call then.
Pavic?
Aye.
Blodgett? Aye. Beachman?
Aye.
Von Lunen?
Aye.
Jakubowski? Aye. Sullivan?
Aye.
And Schuster, aye.
Okay, our consent agenda is approved, thank you. Okay, item 6 is tonight's agenda. I would like to make one modification, if I could, to add a closed session between items 15 and 16 on tonight's agenda. So I'll make a motion to approve the amended version of that agenda.
Second.
Okay, second by Von Lunen. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. So we have a closed session is 15.5, we'll say. Okay. Item 7 is financial reports. Joy?
In your packet, you have your financial reports. We're still not quite on regular cycle because we're in the midst of closing out last year. I actually got the draft of the audit report this afternoon, and so I'm in process of proofing that. The audit will be formally presented to you as a board at the October meeting. There's nothing out of the ordinary, no big surprises. And then next month you'll have the working budget like you normally receive with the first quarter projections and everything that you're more used to seeing. Nothing, thus far we're getting all our tax payments on time. We will receive another one tomorrow. We have one left in October, and then there'll be the tax sale payment that arrives sometime in November. And everything is on par with what we're supposed to be getting.
Okay.
So if anybody has any questions.
Okay. Thank
Okay.
you, Joy. All right. Item 8 is the President's report. And I'd just like to congratulate our new coffee shop proprietor, Steve Kilberg, on reopening the coffee shop here at the library under the name Chapters, Chapters Cafe or Chapters Coffee House. I guess I should have.
Both actually, Chapters Coffee House and Cafe.
And Cafe, okay. I did have that right, sort of. So congratulations to the Kilbergs on that endeavor, and we're glad to have them up and running and apparently successfully. So look for good things ahead from the coffee house inside the Batavia Library. Item 9 is good news or comments from the board. Does any trustee have anything to report?
Well, piggybacking on what you just said, I saw someone I didn't even know today when she found out I was on the board, told me how much she liked the new coffee house.
Okay, great.
They're good.
I attended the art and fashion and art seminar last night. Very good.
Okay.
Stacy did a good job.
Okay, thank you, Tom. Yes?
I was here for the Windmill Symposium and the new cafe provided us with food. I think they did, didn't they? In the morning on Saturday, and lunch on Saturday, and it was wonderful. Very delicious.
Okay.
How was the symposium?
Oh, are we talking about that now?
No, you were talking about comments and good news. So I was
Oh, I'm sorry. Okay.
I'm
Well,
not trying to put words in your mouth. It's just that I know that you participated in it, so I thought you'd be a good source of information.
might be too close to it, but I thought it went really well. And we had a lot of very, very positive comments about it. And we had several people come from out of town. I had provided Stacy with a list of the regional windmillers who basically a 5 or 6 state area and other notables, I guess. And so we had a really very good attendance, I think, from the Midwest was well represented, and as well as local people. And people seemed to be very interested in the subject and very positive about it. So, and I think it went. Stacy should be commended for her organizational skills, and having been there myself just a year ago, you did a tremendous job. And so did the rest of the staff with the marketing and so forth and so on. So it was really a well-done symposium. I was proud to be part of it.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I was there too, and I thought it was very professional the way it was conducted. And I was impressed at how just some of the dignitaries that were there. You know, somebody who came from Houston for the mechanical engineers, and just really, it was really neat to see all of that coming together to kind of push forward the importance of the history of Batavia, and to have us be a part of that was a wonderful thing.
And that we are the second, this is the second, I'm going to use the abbreviation ASME, American Society of Mechanical Engineers award. Batavia has been awarded 2 awards.
Oh, wow.
So first was for Fermilab, and I think that was back in the 60s, something like that.
I don't know that. I know it's for their
Something.
chiller, their cooler, or their cooling cryogenic system.
And then now to have a small little town like us have 2 awards, and they only have, I shouldn't say only, 225, or I'm not sure if I'm juxtaposing those numbers,
Ours was
around the world, 225 around the world awards, and for Batavia to have 2 of them is just a real treat. And it did, I want to pat my husband on the back because he gave a little seminar to the ASME group along with their trip up to see the Dutch windmill. And from that generated this whole interest in looking at what Batavia did with the windmills and the significant role it played in the world. And so anyway, it was a long effort and a lot of back and forth conversations and editing and opinions, and from many people from ASME, as well as George and Stacy and myself and my husband, and we were proud to be part of it. So.
Okay. Any other comments from the board? All right. Item 10 is correspondence and communications.
There was one item in your packet from State Representative Kay Hatcher. We had
George, may I ask, is anyone from the library attending this event on Saturday?
I am out of town this weekend. I don't know, are you planning on going?
I don't know that we had any children participating, actually. You know, the representatives generally send their information and we put it out, and to be honest, I'm not sure we got anything from
Okay.
Kay Hatcher's office, so.
Okay.
We didn't get a detailed report. We just got this letter. It was
Okay,
nice
fair
of
enough.
her
Thank
somewhere.
you.
2 things at your place. One, also that came through Youth Services, was published by the school district's BPS Messenger, and talks about the public schools and the public library of Batavia departments joining forces to benefit young readers. So wanted to make sure that you received a copy of this report. it's a great project that we're involved with, and it's nice to get that kind of recognition. And then the other piece we put at your place was an article that was in the Daily Herald on Sunday talking about the symposium on Sunday. It was very nice. And the picture, man in the picture in the back, Dick Reisling, it was his family that gave the library the mirror that hangs in this room.
Okay. All right, questions for George on these items? Okay. All right, committee reports, facilities committee, Andrew, anything? Oh, I'm sorry, got ahead of myself. Okay, so George, director's report.
Well, the statistics, which again we're in a running behind last year a bit, of course, as we have been for a few months. One thing that Pam pointed out to me in circulation was that part of the reduction, which was mentioned, I think, at the end of last fiscal year, but is becoming a real number probably throughout the course of this year, is the fact that we combined the circulating TV series on DVD from individual boxes or barcodes for each disc to combining a whole series season together in one box. So every time we check them out now, we may be checking out up to 6 DVDs, whereas before we did this project, which the patrons loved, by the way, we would check out each disc separately. So we definitely will see a decline over the course of this year just in that, because those are very popular. So that's running, could be running in the hundreds or more each month for that. So just want to make sure I pointed out or reminded you of that change we made that will have an effect on our circulation.
Can I ask you one
Sure.
question about circulation? Has this decline eased the staff workload on circulation staff? I know that was a concern as we were preparing for this year's budget, but
Not much, actually, because our circulation has gotten so high compared to when the building opened that we're still running, probably by the end of this fiscal year, we'll still be over 700,000 items, of circulation compared to like 250,000, 10 years ago. So I think there probably is some easing going on, but I think it's not terribly noticeable.
okay.
Also in your packet of the director's report, there is the new season's books between bite schedules, so encourage those if we have an opportunity. Every event is interesting. All the presenters are different and all have something interesting to say. I think we have one of our best ever seasons this year with a lot of interesting books and topics and presenters. And beginning the day after tomorrow with Chris Neitzel explaining to us in what he refers to as a rational fashion 104 reasons why the Cubs have not won a World Series in 4 years. So that should be interesting to see what comes of that particular discussion. And also mentioned in the director's report that we're once again a collection site for the annual clothing drive sponsored by the Batavia Mothers Club. And the bin is set up in the lobby starting just this week for 2 weeks. So we've been a partner with them for many years. I don't even know when we started to do that. So we're happy to participate in the community in that fashion. And then just a reminder that in each issue of Neighbors, there's a comprehensive guide to all of our programs for adults and teens and children and families, and on our special events as well. So that's worth keeping around. If there may be many things that you're interested in yourself, or you can talk about Neighbors. But we're very pleased with the coverage we get there. So that's my report for today. So Joanne and Stacy, go next.
Thank you. I will say that that article that was in the Messenger, the Batavia School District Messenger, and that George copied for you, it's an electronic message, and the communications director, Raquel Lightborn-Coley, had given us a call and said, hey, I heard about something great that happened, this collaborative effort this year, and I wanted to kind of talk to you about it. So she came and sat down with Allison and I and Michelle, and she said she was trying to do a feel-good piece every Friday for the school district, and she said, this really just seems like it's going to be a feel-good piece. And she wrote a beautiful article regarding that. And I had mentioned it last month in my report, that actually the Hooverwood teachers had contacted us. They wanted to get to Batavia Apartments during the summertime and help some of their students, continue working on those reading skills, and did we want to work with them at Batavia Apartments. And about a year ago, last spring, so in the spring of 2012 is when we created that deposit collection over at Batavia Apartments that Carol Hallow, one of our staff members, continues to update. And so when I talked with Allison said, yeah, I'd be happy to go over. So it was a great opportunity. A lot of those children aren't able to get to the library regularly, so it was nice that we could do that cooperative effort, and possibly can work on it more. And certainly, though, having the teachers there was a big bonus, because then the students really loved coming, just like they would have loved to come and listen to Mrs. J. read. They just loved coming, hearing their teachers. So it was really a nice opportunity, and I do have to say that she very nicely quoted our Born to Read program, because that was really one of our first collaborative efforts with Batavia Apartments, and so that I think really did lay the groundwork for us working with Batavia Apartments too. Our fall programming schedule has begun, so story times began this week, so things are picking up a little bit. We kind of had a lull right at the beginning of the school year, but now that story time begins, things get pretty active in youth services. Book discussions have begun. We have a lot of special events planned. We do have some book-related programs coming up, special book-related programs during Banned Books Week, celebrating the freedom to read. So we have several activities coming up that week. But we have also, Jolene Baytek, the SWIA staff person who books our larger family events this year, came up with the idea about, how about if we do a nature series? Kids all love animal programs. We could have Dave Donasso and his reptiles here, every month, and the kids love it. So Jolene found 3 programs, and I'll pass around the flyer, that she is kind of billing as a nature series this fall for children. The first one, which is on September 28th at 10:30 on Saturday morning, is turtles. It's all about turtles. In October is owls, and November, spiders, snakes, bees, and wasps. So 2 of the programs are Saturday morning events, so that's going to be a new venture for us. We typically don't do larger programs like this on a Saturday morning, but we're going to see how attendance might be for that. And then the final one in November is a Sunday afternoon, and that is the last of the Young Friends events sponsored by the Friends of the Batavia Public Library. 5 years ago, some of you may remember that the Friends wanted to sponsor a program every year, a Young Friends program, to kind of get themselves known a little bit more to some of our families of children. And so they said that they would sponsor one program every year for 5 years, and this is the last of that special series for the Young Friends. So we're looking forward to that, and we'll be interested to see how a series type program goes in youth services. So
Sounds like a great idea.
yeah,
Will you be going back to the Friends to see if they'll sponsor?
to see if they do a new Young Friends. Well, we'll have to see when the next wish list comes out. That might be a nice thing. They've sponsored authors in the past a couple of years. They've sponsored some of a big event in the fall. So it was a nice program. So we'll have to see if they'd like to keep that up. So thank you.
Thanks, Joe.
Can I ask you something real quick?
Sure.
The staff development day that you guys were working on that, how did it go?
Staff Development Day was very well received.
staff do like to, it is nice to get out and visit other agencies and other libraries. So I think Fountaindale, since it is such a new library, had a lot of some of the innovations that we see and talk about, but we, don't have or maybe are considering. And so it was good to see that. I think Stacy can speak to her staff as well. My staff really enjoyed it. Great comments back as a whole from all the staff across the board, circulation, administration, even pages. It was a great opportunity to see another library and how other libraries do things. It was a great opportunity for some camaraderie building, and just sharing, because we got to travel together and spend the day together. But it also gave us I think it sparked people's interest in what are some new things we could be doing. But it also, I think, made people feel good about what we were doing. And I think that was important as well.
Mm-hmm.
That
So you stack up there with
we
everybody?
do, that what we're doing is good.
Good.
And they enjoy being a part of
Well,
it.
that's the best part. Thanks.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you, Joanne.
Sure.
Stacy?
George had mentioned the Batavia Windmill Symposium, and I just want to thank everyone who was involved. There are too many people for me to even begin to name, or we'd be here throughout the evening. But our presenters, Bob and Francine, and Dr. Baker from Texas, and Christopher Gillis from Maryland, did a spectacular job of giving presentations that held an audience rapt. We had 275 people in attendance throughout the day. People, and this doesn't include the presenters, we had people from New York, Florida, Michigan, Iowa, Wisconsin, Nebraska, Indiana, and Virginia.
Wow.
So it was wonderful, and a wide smattering of Batavians, a lot of faces in that crowd that I recognized, as well as the out-of-state visitors.
Colorado Springs.
Hmm?
Was there Colorado Springs as well?
There was also Colorado, yes, I missed one, adding that to the list. We also, on Saturday, released the second edition of the Windmill City book, which you have in front of you. And those are available for free distribution in Batavia. People just need to come into the library and they can pick up a free copy. People can purchase it for $5 from outside the area and we'll mail a copy to them. So we're glad to have the second edition released.
I want to say thank you for the plaque for the foundation.
Yes.
The foundation supported the publication of that.
Yes.
You gave us a very nice plaque. Thank you.
George,
Yes, we can pass this.
Yeah.
Jessica.
the sponsors are listed in the back of the book, and at the book launch portion of the day on Saturday, George presented each sponsor with a plaque, and that's what Kara is sending around, the Batavia Public Library Foundation plaque. Thank you.
The Friends got one too.
And the Friends received one as well as the other sponsors that are in the back of the book.
And I did want to make a comment that BATV was recording it, so it will be available for people who were not able to attend, that they can watch it,
Yes.
and it will be saved for posterity.
For posterity, thanks to BATV.
Okay, thank you, Stacy.
Okay, say one more.
Oh, yeah,
Thanks,
please.
sorry. Okay. Oh, I just want to say thank you so much for holding the anime club. I have one who participates in that, and it's really a small niche, but it really is important. So thank you for doing that.
Great, I'll pass that on to Christine.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, any other questions for Stacy? Okay, committee reports, item 12. Andrew, anything to report from facilities?
We had a very good discussion about the proposals and the work proposed by Studio GC for the audiovisual improvements for this room and for the meeting room, and then for the improvements to the lavatories. I think we'll probably talk about those further down on that, so we can go into that later. But that pretty much took up the extent of our meeting, so.
Okay, all right. Questions for Andrew? Okay. 12D is the Services Committee, and the item that we discussed is actually not on today's agenda because we declined to pursue it any further, but our discussion centered around photos on library cards as a means to ensure that people who check out books are actually using the card that they're supposed to be using and reduce fraud if any. we decided that while there's some legitimate reasons to pursue it, the logistics of it was sort of not worth the effort that the benefits would accrue to us. So the committee declined to pursue that any further, but I'd be happy to answer any questions about our discussion or entertain any comments. Okay. All right. 12F is the Friends Group. Francine?
I do want to apologize, I did not bring my notes from that meeting. So, George, you were there, would you mind doing the report?
Well, let me think.
Okay.
Putting them on the spot here.
They were discussing their fall plans. They did a special sale for friends, members, and staff and families on September 5th. So that was, I guess, went very well. We presented a wish list that included requests from departments around the library to them, and they like to get it in one meeting and then discuss it or talk about it the next meeting. So I anticipate that'll take place in September. And turns out that they did not meet in June and July, so this turned out to be their get back in the saddle kind of meeting. And their new president, Joanne Smith, seems to be very organized, and she actually had committees meeting over the summer, and so they hit the ground running this fall, and they seem really excited about where they're going. So that's the report.
Okay, thank you, George. Questions on the Friends Group? Okay, and then 12G is Link. Kara, would you like to?
Sure, I just have a couple of things because number 14 is going to be covering a lot of what we discussed at the last meeting with the bylaws. There's a major change in the bylaws that needs to be discussed and voted upon. But a couple other things, the OPAC or the Online Public Access Catalog, they're working on an upgrade called Enterprise, and they're going to be trying it out on October 1st in Glen Ellen. And they're hoping within 6 months to a year to get that to all of the libraries, so it'll have like a different interface and more user-friendly. And then they're going to be transferring some of their funds to IMET, which is the Illinois Metropolitan Investment Fund. It's supposed to be a little more viable as far as making some money for Link, and more diversified maybe. I'm not sure. I think.
Okay, yeah. I
Does that sound good?
our library entertained that
We explored that
possibility
a few
several
years
years
ago.
ago, and yeah.
They're not
so-
putting everything into it, they're just trying to see how it runs and if it works well for them. So that's my report for now.
Okay, thank you, Kara. Any questions on that? Okay, item 13, future agenda items. You have a report in your packet. Any questions on that memo? Okay, 14, the Link bylaws. We have a lengthy introductory memo here from George about these bylaws, and then the proposed, proposed bylaws then here in gray. So, Kara, would you like to start us off on what's changing here?
Well, I think the major change, and it has to do with Rails, which is the state library system. They've decided to allow all consortia to have 2 members from each consortium be represented. And so they felt that it would be better to probably have an administrator in that capacity, and instead of a trustee from one of the libraries. And that's kind of where this initiated, I believe. And so, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and we're going to be adapting the bylaws anyway. And based on working on evaluation of the manager and whatnot, it seemed that, a lot of times the trustees are a little bit out of the loop as far as what was really happening at the office and with the manager, and there's a lot of times there's big turnover with trustees at the filling in that capacity. And so a lot of times people are not quite sure what's going on. So, to make the story short, basically, they would like to have the board of directors no longer be trustee members from the libraries, but just have it be the administrators. And everything else would stay the same as far as how everything's conducted with finances and policies. So that's what we'd be voting on, is if we approve that, then I would no longer have to be a trustee in that capacity, except for perhaps like once a year, to attend in September to discuss, or just to kind of do a round table, and then also to deal with some sort of financial stuff, or I can't remember
Well,
what it was.
I think the budget would still
The
come back
budget.
to each board, I
Right,
think, for approval.
right.
Okay.
So it's not like we wouldn't have a say, it's just that George would be the main voice, just because, and you have more experience with what actually needs to be happening with the consortium anyway. I would have to
And right now,
say.
there's really two boards in a way.
Right, there's two.
The governing board, which is trustees, and the administrative council, which is directors. So we're both
Right.
doing this.
Right, and the thing is like, when we went to evaluate Carol, we don't work with her on a regular basis. The only time we
Right.
see her is every 2 months. And we were, trying to get information from the administrators, on her working and how she does, and it just didn't make sense. I mean, they're more with the
Yeah.
inner workings of what's happening there on a regular basis. And
Right.
when people are trained in OPEC or whatever is happening, he's directly in contact with that and what's happening. So-
Right. Did you get a sense of whether has widespread support among the other members?
Right, yeah, we had a discussion, pretty lengthy discussion about it, and most of the other members are in support of it. It just seems like a logical thing to do.
Okay. All right. Questions for Kara on this item?
Were there any, excuse me, were
Yes.
there any negatives that were brought up about doing it?
Not really. There wasn't, everybody was, we went around the table and everybody was very positive about that, and they just wanted to make sure that there was, continued, I guess, oversight of what was happening, but that we would still have a say in it, and then, again, like in September with the budget, that we would still have our hand in that and know what was going on.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
George, I guess a question for you about some of the items you pointed out here being problems with the bylaws as proposed.
Well, some of those are my opinion from having been involved in this thing for a long time. I've discussed them with Carol Daw, and as it happens, one of the other libraries, of course, all 9 libraries meet on different dates. So I think Glen Ellen met last week, and that board had a couple they approved the bylaws as presented, but they had, I think, 2 rather, major suggestions for changes. And what came out of my discussion with Carol was that those kind of things can be accomplished, further review and changes can be accomplished by amendment. And nothing that I presented there, to me, prohibits or prevents this board from approving them. Even the typographical errors, the Links attorneys suggested, as I thought perhaps they would, but they're considered Scribner's errors, and they're not really a substantive.
There's a meaning
Yeah.
behind it.
So I'm quite comfortable approving the bylaws as they are, but what I wanted to express to you, in order to keep this board in the loop, were that there are some things that I had some concerns about. Probably the most significant concern is that if for any reason, and I have none to present because we're quite happy being a member of Link, if for any reason we wanted to leave, or say the Tri-City Libraries got together and said, we could be better off someplace else or something, a library that leaves Link, all of its equity share that is held in Link's reserves is lost to that library or to those libraries. And I think that's a rather bad oversight but the only way the library is getting distribution of their share of the money is if Link as a whole goes out of business. And so I thought that was something maybe worth addressing. I don't know whether we'll get very far with that kind of an idea, but it seems to me that a library that has been a member for 15+ years shouldn't be penalized. Maybe it shouldn't get everything back, but I don't know if it should get zero back of its investment in the.
I believe that it also states that if the library decides to leave the group, there's a 1-year waiting period in which they have to maintain their commitment, financial commitment to it.
There's some time frames that are built. I can't speak to the exact time frames, but I think you're right. There's some time frames built in. And each library owns its own data, patron and bibliographic data, but is required to actually pay Link extra to get the tapes of that back if it should decide to leave, even though it's got a huge. There are a lot of money each library has sitting in reserves in Link right now. So there's some things that seem inequitable. I suppose they're designed to keep libraries from leaving Link, which would probably very effectively. But although Addison Public Library was a founding member and it left actually a number of years ago, so I guess it's not a complete fail-safe for people leaving if they've got a good reason to, or libraries. I'm not recommending that we want to leave, but I think it certainly ties any library's hands if it makes sense. So anyway, I'm comfortable with the bylaws.
In the few times that I've attended the meetings, I believe that if a library is strong enough to leave, it would almost mean the end of Link. I don't think the other libraries, they all use it as a way to get out. So they might disband and then reorganize as something else.
Well, that's true. And if one of the bigger libraries, like say Charles, decided they probably would completely demolish the financial structure of the library. So there's a lot of that going on in the state right now. I think it's because of the consolidation of a lot of the library systems. There have been several groups of libraries that have split away from the traditional consortia that were run by the library systems and have formed new consortia, sometimes as small as 2 libraries together or bigger. So I'm aware of at least 3 of those just in the last couple of years. So I think we're in a period of change.
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
Do we know what Addison's reason was years ago for leaving?
I don't. That was before I came to town. I think they became a standalone. I don't think they liked having to adapt what they wanted to do to the policies of the larger group or something. That'd be my best guess, but that's the only thing I've heard that might be the reason, but that was before I got here.
Would it behoove us in voting to have a suggestion attached to that vote or something, saying that we feel strongly that these considerations should be...
That's what Glen Ellen did. They approved the bylaws as submitted with the following suggestions. I'm not sure how they phrased it. I haven't seen their exact motion, but that was what was passed on from Don Bussey, the director, was that my board approved this as presented. However, my board made the following following suggestions for changes. So if this board feels strongly about anything that I presented, certainly that's an option to go on record.
I mean, if people wanted to spend more time with the bylaws, I have them, and we aren't we're not going to be voting on this until November.
This board could actually, we could bring it back in October if the board wishes.
But we're sort of in a position here though where every member library has to vote on the same thing. So if we all try to amend it, we'll never get to
Right.
we'll never get around to voting on the exact same bill like the House and Senate would have to.
I think that's why Glen Ellen didn't approve it with changes, but approved it with suggestions
Yeah.
for changes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. And
Otherwise,
that's
the
what
process starts all over again. as you said.
Right.
Right, and it's
And the board could actually pass a resolution at another time that we think this is important to for Link to consider, because the library is a member library, so it's not, you can give me
Right.
direction in the future as well. It doesn't have to be Link. So.
Well, maybe, does this board feel comfortable with the change in the governing structure where the body composed of trustees would no longer have any voting authority and the directors would?
Well, I think what they're doing is doing away with the trustee board.
Right,
So that just the directors.
Right.
That's why they had to do the bylaws over again to
Right.
eliminate
Right.
the trustee board.
right. So I think, I mean, if that's pretty much the substantive issue that we're dealing with here. So I think if we're comfortable with that, I think we can vote on this. If we want other changes to these bylaws, it probably can't happen now, or at least with this vote anyway. And so whether it happens now or next year or next month or whatever is probably not crucial in terms of timing, so.
There surely will be discussions about further fine tuning. I made some of these suggestions relatively late in the bylaws review process, and so it was deemed to us that it was too late to worry about those now, kind of a response I got. And Glen Ellen's board clearly had some suggestions that they wanted to get on record now, but did not change the bylaws. So there's certainly going to be opportunities. We can even, bring the issue, even if you approve the bylaws tonight, we could put that issue over to a committee or bring it back again.
Yeah, actually, that seems like a pretty good idea. That way we can, some trustees can get into it a little bit. Okay. Well, I'll entertain then a motion to approve the bylaws as proposed for Link.
One second.
First.
Oh, then I'll first.
Okay. Moved by Maureen and second by
Oh, okay.
Blodgett. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
Should we also add in the comments that George has made at this time, or wait till later,
Well, I think
as a suggestion?
I think George had a good idea that we could maybe send those to a committee for some further discussion, and then once we get a consensus amongst our board, then pass that along via resolution or however to Link for future consideration.
Do you want to go to a committee like services, or do you want to appoint an ad hoc committee to look at it, or what is?
I think services probably.
And anyone who wants to, they can join
Yeah.
the committee.
Yeah.
They can come to the committee meeting.
Okay, all right.
Well, along those lines, I mean, just the one thought I had about that is like, why would we ever want to remove ourselves from that? And that, from Link, it means that we'd be able to support ourselves with it open and all of that technology. So I'm not sure if that's something, I mean, just for your own sake, it's not something that's going to happen immediately if we were to leave. It's just something that we would, if we ever felt that we'd be able to handle that, and I don't know if we would ever.
Yeah,
I mean, in the
understood.
future, I mean, right, I mean, just the expense of that and.
It'd be more expensive to be a standalone for us than it would be, we'd also lose the interlibrary cooperation of moving books back and forth easily
Right.
with a shared catalog. Probably the key issue for us really is, well, there are two key issues. One is certainly financial, and the second is certainly the ability to share materials, and for us, particularly in the Tri-City area.
Mhm.
When Geneva joined Link, that actually filled a gap that was very apparent amongst our patrons, so that the three libraries,
Mhm.
you know,
So I'm just saying that the benefits to be a member
well, they outweigh, yeah. If Geneva and St. Charles one day said, you know, we're tired of being a link, we might want to consider following them. Otherwise, we're back, you know,
Right.
without our two biggest sharing libraries being involved. But there's no talk of that. I'm
Right.
just speaking,
No,
I'm
right,
just
right.
speaking
Right, no, it was just,
hypothetically,
you were just micro looking at the bylaws, which is good.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry,
Karen.
I just wanted.
Oh,
Sure, no, good, excellent point. Services Committee will take that into consideration. Okay, item 15 is capital maintenance projects. You have a project narrative from Studio GC here. Andrew, do you want to
Sure.
highlight anything?
We can run through these, I hope fairly quickly. These are talking about the audiovisual improvements to the main meeting room next door, and then also to this meeting room here. We discussed improvements. Right now, the way that is set up is there's one screen, one projector. If you want to do anything with a video in there, you need to use that. You need to have the whole room. The sound is provided through whatever you bring with you.
And in fact, we don't even have a projector now.
Oh, did it go kaput?
We only have a portable. At the
Oh,
library,
right, okay.
yeah. So there's no built-in projector in that room.
And it's just a screen. So, and if you wanted to do sound, it was you're bringing in a player, DVD player, then you had to have your own sound and things like that. So we'd like to make that room more accessible to organizations to use, and we'd like to make it as flexible as possible for use. We've talked about adding 2 additional screens and projectors for all 3 screens, and then options for sound so that you can either listen to sound for the entire room or each individual room. To do that, one of the things we'd have to do is add soundproofing in there to separate the sound so it doesn't come over the walls into the hallway here and into each section as you're listening to whatever they're doing from the speakers there. There's some ways to do it inexpensively and simply, but with less flexibility and less control. And then as you go through the options, what we had asked Studio GC to do was to lay out a base cost and then to add these alternates to us that give us additional flexibility and options for the room, knowing that we're going to get our best costs on bid day. If we decide after we get the bids in that we want to make a change and add some flexibility or add a rack or make some changes, we're not going to get as good a prices as we are on the day we ask the contractors to put in the bid. So that's why there's a base bid and alternates for doing that. So the base bid is just one projector, let's see, and then local, let's see, projector in each room and then a screen for each room. But room C, which is the configuration of both rooms open, already has the screen. We put the screens in the ceiling, we put power in, we'd have amplified sound, which means speakers, and a mixer. And there would not be a rack or anything special about that would allow for some of the other alternates. Alternate 1 is to have to put a rack in the room, which basically is like if you had an old stacked stereo at home with the different equipment in it, which would allow you some flexibility for what you're listening to and where the sound is coming from and sound is going to, and same with the screens. So it kind of lays out what the different inputs and what we would have there. And then alternate C is to improve on that, but would also include programmable touchscreen, a DVD player, things like that. These other options also would have Ethernet inputs. So if we're going to do something over the internet, such as video conferencing or watching BATV live in there, we could do that. So that kind of runs through there. We would have local area local LAN connection, local area network. Thank you. So that way, if there's something going on in the library, you could pull up, like the computers in the library, you could pull up and do a live demonstration of some of our software that's used here. So a lot more flexibility, a lot more functionality there, a few more bells and whistles. Alternate. Let's see, alternate. Okay, the Gotcha. Alternate 3 is to go to LED-based projectors versus the standard bulb ones, which there's some cost savings long-term for that and less hassle. And then alternate 4 was the conference room here. We had originally talked about putting, doing this as a base item, having a large screen TV in here and being able to have some inputs and do things in here. Decided that that wasn't a necessity, and depending upon how the bids came in, if we had budget for it, we would add that in here. But otherwise, we'll leave that as an alternate. So that would be a large television in here and then inputs so we can do presentations. And then some of the questions were, where would the TV go? Do we move the display from here and put the TV here so that the audience can watch if we're doing something, or depending upon the configuration of the room, or do we do it on this back wall, which right now is empty? So, but we can kind of figure that, where it goes, I don't think will make a difference on our bid as they come in. So we can look at the price and go from there. If we do something in here, we would also need some soundproofing. So those were the alternates we looked at for that. And then for the restrooms, the idea is, as you probably know, is to change out the counters in there where we've got a lot of water damage from just long-term use of those. The counters are great for what they are, or for maybe a less demanding service than we have here. So we've got quartz countertops. We decided on those just because of their durability. Paint the walls, new sink faucets, undermounted stainless steel sinks for ease of maintenance, new mirrors, same size and configuration. We'd raise those up off the backsplash a little bit so that right now we have some water issues. You get rid of that, hopefully.
The current mirrors actually have suffered deterioration on the silvering because of where they're located and weight of this stuff.
Kind of wicks up the back of the back wall there. So that's going to be our base option. The alternate option is to change the way the sinks so that they're actually not attached to the back wall. That would allow any water that spills wouldn't pool on the countertops. Instead, it would go down the back wall. This would require a lot of additional framing underneath and possibly some framing in the walls. And until they actually get the walls open, we may not know if that's a available option for us until we actually see the plumbing in the walls or the contractor gets in there. So that would be an alternate option in there. Part of the reason we wanted to consider that too, or make that an alternate, is we need some more feedback from staff as to whether we feel that that is a better option as far as cleanup and daily maintenance.
I can
space.
report that staff in general, and the new McDonald's has a
Right.
arrangement like this, although it's a single sink kind of arrangement, so it is not nearly as complex as ours. Staff would not object to there not being an alternate one.
Just to do the normal attached to the wall. Yeah, because one of our concerns was as water splashes down the back, how much harder is it for staff to clean that up? I mean, it looks really neat. You don't have pooling water, so that solves the problem. But I think by spending the additional money on the quartz countertops, we save that problem. So maybe we just do so we're looking at just doing the standard.
Like I said, staff's recommendation is that this may not be worth considering regardless of the cost. And it seems like to open up the walls and install the kind of framing you need to support a floating type countertop would easily be significantly more expensive than
Yeah.
and while it does seem to be a contemporary trend, we're not sure on the staff level whether that really warrants investing what could be thousands of extra dollars for that feature. But
And
clear that up for us.
which we may not even be able to do. We'd have to open up the walls to find out. So I guess I don't have a strong feeling either way about putting that on. So.
We would need to give direction to the architect, so
Okay.
if the board is amenable to taking that alternate out, we'd have to
Okay.
strike it.
Wasn't there a question about, our maintenance guy thought that he could tell from the ceiling above whether or not there
They've
was an
done that.
obstacle?
They did that yesterday, I think. Got in here and there's places where you can, above the ceiling where you can, because the walls don't go all the way up, you can actually look down. I know that Jeff brought Craig Meadows, the architect, up to do that. Now, I have not gotten a report back from Craig on what his findings were. And I'm not sure, looking from the top down, whether you can see necessarily, and I defer to the engineer about this on that, whether you can actually necessarily see all of what's in that wall from.
Depends on whether or not you can, I guess. Yeah. So I mean, if you shine a flashlight down, depending upon what's in the way.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I mean, as neat as that would look, I don't think that's a big deal for us, so. One thing to note though, so the AV bids are electricians, audio, low voltage, type guys. The plan would be for any of the drywall work or the soundproofing work, the guys that would be doing the countertops, that's gonna be plumbers and carpenters. We would pull that portion of the work out of the AV contract and move it into the contract with the plumbers and carpenters that would be doing the work in the bathroom. So although those soundproofing improvements would be done as part of the AV project, they would be done under the bathroom, public restroom contract, which I think is gonna be the most efficient way to do it. Otherwise, the AV guy is just gonna hire a drywaller and then he's gonna mark it up. So we're better off having a general contractor that does that as their primary business. I think we'll get better prices that way. So we would have those alternates in the plumbing contract for the soundproofing, those would be broken out, so we know. The idea is, our discussion tonight, we would put them out to bid sometime in the next week. Bids would be due on October 10th. We would review them at Facilities Committee, and then we would have we're planning a special meeting for that, right, George?
October.
On October 10th, so.
So the committee can review it and make a recommendation to the board.
Okay, and then our board meeting would be on the 15th. They do have a mandatory contractor pre-bid meeting, I think was October.
I don't have that.
Second, maybe? Anyways, there's a mandatory meeting for the contractors, so they come and look at it, which is a great idea. Especially when you're working inside a building, you get an idea what the work is, and you don't want them to have any surprises, so.
I had one question. Are you thinking at all of having hand dryers in the bathrooms or just the towels?
What, I'm not sure.
Currently, there's no electricity in those rooms for hand dryers. There was discussion about it, but it wasn't included in here because of the extra cost of running all the circuits. Because of the nature of them nowadays, they need to be on their own circuit because they put out so much power. And so that's my memory from the conversation. I'll prefer to hear memory as well.
I don't remember that, but that makes sense. I mean, those are gonna draw some amps when they turn on.
Yeah,
If
we
they
could
short
ask
out,
for them
you're
as an
gonna lose your
alternate, I
loads.
guess, but we'd have to install new circuitry in there, in 4 different restrooms.
That may not be, Yeah.
Some newer restrooms have only air, and some have both. Ours, when the building was built, the air was not put in.
Please come to use service desk.
Well, we can add it as an alternate if
Please come
the
to
board
use
wants to do
service
that.
desk. Thank you.
I don't know what it takes downstairs. Does Craig know what it takes to do that?
He said we'd have to put in new circuits in each room. We'd have to run new circuits, and I presume that we can do that, but it would.
I guess it depends on how many spares are downstairs in the electrical room.
I haven't asked
Any
that
idea?
question.
I'm sure we have building capacity for how far we have to go to get it there.
Right. And if there's room in the fuse box, we can just add more breakers, but I say just, I mean, yeah, it's time and money to run the conduit and run the wiring, so. Is that something we should have them look at?
I don't know, it just always seems more economical not to have paper.
Sure.
You know, it's greener,
Sort of
not
agree.
to have paper.
Yeah, I mean, I would be fine with that. I'd almost rather have that as an alternative than the countertops. Are there any thoughts on the countertops? And the floating countertops, I think, look pretty sharp and kind of contemporary, but the concern that came up is as people wash their hands and water splashes across the back, how are the maintenance staff gonna get behind there to wash that back wall? The idea is to make things easier for them, not make it harder. We're worried about water stains down the back, and things like that, so.
We also had expressed a concern that water could get on the floor and it could be a slippery issue, but they said that the sinks would be tipped or something.
Well, but if it rained, if somebody were to
Sloped.
splash so much water, it ran down the back wall and came to the front floor, and there's
Right.
only a couple of floor drains in there, so. By doing the sinks with a continuous, they would have a little bit of a lip on it, so any water that falls in the sink should cool, unless somebody really goes to town in there. So, which does happen, so. I don't know, I haven't been over to the new McDonald's to look at the
I
bathrooms.
went after the last meeting.
Does
The
it-
facilities meeting.
Does it look sharp, or?
All right.
So,
Siding, it
I-
wasn't.
It's a bad.
There's still a lot of hardware behind there
Yeah.
that was visible, so it wasn't really.
Yeah, I don't, I think for the additional cost, I don't think it's worth it, in my opinion, so.
Okay.
Then perhaps the alternate of putting in a hand dryer would be,
Yeah, I think I'd rather see us spend
And you have-
extra money there.
I think you'd have support from the community in terms of the green aspect and savings on paper.
With these, if we can afford the dryers and they go in, would the suggestion be not to have towels at all? I'm just asking, and a lot of places now have both. I don't know whether people self-select one way or another on those things.
I think if you've got a diaper changing area, I think towels would probably be preferred, I would imagine. Holding your baby up to the, you know, to the, would not be preferable.
There's something we didn't discuss at the committee meeting,
That's right, that's right.
So what direction do we want to give the architects?
That's what I added in.
Yeah, I like
Just
the
in the
idea.
bidding stages.
Drop the floating countertop?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree.
And then we weren't talking about eliminating, we were talking about reusing paper, the existing paper.
Oh, yeah.
So we would just reuse those and
Well,
then
the
add.
dispensers are given to, no one pays for dispensers anymore. The suppliers all give you the dispensers.
Because they want the paper business.
Yeah, well, and all the different companies make all the different styles to fit in the competitor dispensers, because even if you get vendor A's dispenser, vendor B may come and say, I can give you the same, the same amount of towels for half the price. And so you're putting vendor B's towels in vendor A's dispenser. It's a real racket. I don't know how they do all this. Anyway, so.
Okay, so alternate one's gonna be add, electric hand dryers to each lobby.
See how much it would be, or if it's possible.
Right, so it would be an alternate to the bid.
Right, let's find out how much it would cost.
Right, so the contractor on the bid day, they would add that price, and then we could decide, when we evaluate the bids here, we could decide whether we wanted to add that alternate if it was worth the cost.
Any particular opinion on how many dryers? Because our restrooms up here are long and narrow. Would you want one at the front and one at the back?
You'd have to have one on
Yeah, you probably need two for up here and one for each of the ones downstairs, so.
So we're talking like-
two for each of the ones up here.
Right, so we're
Right.
talking 4 up here and 2 downstairs.
Okay.
Okay.
Any other comments on that proposal? All right, so we need a motion to approve this project narrative as amended by deleting on page 4, alternate 1, and replacing it with the addition of 6 hand dryers in the library restrooms.
And may I suggest that we essentially ask the architect to recommend us how many hand dryers we should have?
Sure. Yeah, I would say instead of us saying 6, just electric hand dryers as.
All right.
As
Okay.
required
As
by code.
recommended.
Yeah, code might actually.
There may be a code requirement, I don't
But
know.
number, and maybe.
There seems to be, there is for how many water fountains we have.
And there we have it, okay.
We actually have fewer than the code requires now water fountains because the building's old, 10 years old, but that's a different story.
Okay. We're grandfathered in.
We are.
Okay. All right, so strike that motion. We need a motion to approve this project narrative as amended by deleting alternate 1 on page 4 and replacing it with the architect's recommended number and methodology for installing hand dryers. Okay.
I so move.
Moved by Von
Second.
Second by Schuster. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. That project is approved to go out for bid. Thank you. Okay. And now item 15.5 is a closed session for the purposes of discussing an employee of the library, personnel matters. I don't have the phraseology in front of me, but
It's exception number 1.
Okay.
Of the open.
Personnel.
Personnel, yeah.
Paraphrasing personnel, okay. Do I hear a motion to adjourn to a closed session?
So moved.
Moved by Jakubowski, second by Blodgett. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay.